Good afternoon. I'm Rose Scott, host of A Closer Look here on 90.1 WABE here in Atlanta. Welcome to the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk-Young debate series originating from the studios of Public Broadcasting Atlanta. This is the runoff debate among the candidates for Atlanta City Council President. So let's meet the candidates. They are in alphabetical order. First up, Felicia Moore has served on the Atlanta City Council for District 6 since 1997, and Alex Wan has been serving his second term as a council member for his district. Now let's meet our panelists. First up, Tom Baxter is a columnist for Supporter Report. Dan Clapeau covers the Atlanta government for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and Stephanie Stokes covers the city of Atlanta for WABE 90.1 FM. Today's debate will consist of 3 rounds, and for more information about that, it's real easy. Just log on to the atlantapressclub.org. Before we get started with the rounds, I'm going to actually pose a question to both candidates, and they will have 30 seconds to answer. The first question is about leadership, and Felicia Moore, will start with you. How do you define leadership as it relates to serving as Atlanta City Council President?
I define leadership serving as Atlanta City Council President as one who has had the experience over nearly 19 years of how the council operates, how the city council should operate as a check and balance in our government, and a pivotal role in how we conduct business at City Hall. I see it as a collaborative position, a position that can bring all parties together, and one that can help move forward the things that we know are important to our city in Atlanta.
And Councilmember Alex Wan, you have the same question.
Thank you. I define leadership as the ability to bring people together that may or may not have aligned views, to be able to share ideas, share thoughts and perspectives, and work collaboratively on a solution, and then figure out how to implement that. Again, it may be differing views, but be able to create a forum where everyone feels welcome, included, that their opinions are valued, and that we can reach some sort of conclusion.
Thank you, candidates. We will now move to the first round, and in this round, each candidate will be asked 2 questions from each of the panel. Now, candidates will be able to respond to the questions. Tom Baxter, you get the first question for Alex Wan.
Mr. Wan, according to the latest report, the city's legal bill for the bribery scandal is now up to $1.4 million, which is a stiff tuition in the school for scandal. What does the city learn from this? What lessons can we take away from this scandal that would benefit the city in the future?
The scandal is very unfortunate for those of us who've been at the city doing good, honest work. It's incredibly frustrating to be operating under that cloud. And I think that is the lesson that we take, that we have to do everything that we can come January, or even as we wind down this term, to restore the trust in the public. It is expensive, it is costly, it costs the taxpayers not just money, but trust, and that in itself may be priceless. What the council needs to do, along with the administration, is immediately begin with reforming our contracting procedure, daylighting specific aspects of contracting so that more eyes can be on it, limiting the ability of departments and the administration to pile on additional money and limit competition, and then speed up the process so departments don't have to find workarounds, and then finally do a complete audit of the department. Again, fundamentally we need to restore that trust so that we're not wasting taxpayer dollars.
And again, candidates will have 60 seconds to answer the question. Next up, Dan Clapeau, it's your turn to ask Felicia Moore a question.
Ms. Moore, I think it's fair to say that you have had a real independent streak in your time on the council. Sometimes you've been the lone voice of dissension in committee meetings and lone no votes on policies and issues. I wondered how will that independent streak impact your relationships with council members on a council that you want to lead, will impact your relationship with the new administration, and most importantly, how will the citizens of Atlanta benefit from it?
Well, the citizens of Atlanta, first of all, I believe benefit from my independence because they know that I am there for one purpose, and that is to represent them and what's in the best interest of the city. I think it will impact how I deal with the council in that I believe the city council is a check and balance. That is the role of the council and the legislative body, and I certainly will work with council members to encourage them to continue the same. I will not be a voting member of the council, but I also will be there to make sure that the questions are asked and that they're vetted properly. I believe that I can work strongly with whomever our new mayor is, and that I am the best choice as council president to be able to work with either one of the ladies who have offered themselves for service in making sure that we do the best by our citizens, that we provide the check and balance, and that the executive branch and the legislative branch both continue to serve their role.
And Stephanie Stokes, now you will have an opportunity to ask Felicia Moore a question.
Councilmember Moore, so many neighborhoods are still dealing with vacant, boarded-up homes. You've been on the council for some time, and so why does this remain an issue, and what more could the City Council do about it?
As a member of City Council, when I was first elected, I was a newly elected chair of the Community Development Committee. I served for 4 years, and my #1 focus was revising the code as it relates to housing code. But the issue is systemic, and we have also gone through a housing bust, which has made it even more prevalent. So what I did is decided to hire someone in my office that dealt exclusively and 100% with code enforcement. Through those targeted efforts, we've been able to demolish hundreds of property, clean and close many properties, and are continuing to see derelict apartment buildings, one who had over 50,000 tires dumped there, now cleaned up, and we just cut the ribbon on a wonderful new facility for senior citizens in our city who want to stay near their homes and can have it at an affordable rate.
Well, we now go back to Tom Baxter, who gets an opportunity to ask Alex Wan another question.
Based on your experience in City Council, do you think there are any structural changes that would be advisable for City Council? And I'm talking about anything from the size of the council to committees or the voting procedure or the role of the council president.
So I've been able to work well within the existing structure, organizational structure of City Council. I think there's still a lot of work that we can do to improve our operations before we even worry and address organizational changes to it. Number one, we're not as deliberative as I'd like to be. I'd like to see us anticipate issues, initiatives, transactions well in advance before it comes before us in the form of legislation. I'd like to see us do more retreats where we can bring in outside experts that can inform us on topics and bring in best practices from across the country. And I'd like to just see us, with the Chairs Committee meetings even, just really thinking through policy, trying to think if there's specific initiatives around the big issues the city needs to tackle. And I think we just start there even before we start messing with the organizational structure of council.
Well, that concludes our first round. In the second round, candidates now will have an opportunity to ask their opponent a question. Candidates will have 30 seconds to ask the question. And now we will begin with Felicia Moore. You may ask your first question to Alex Wan.
Yes, Mr. Wan. As we know, corruption is a cloud that's over city government, so the trust of their elected officials is extremely important. You were at two forums, one at the Cross Creek Republicans Forum and the other for the Capitol View and surrounding neighborhoods, where you stated that $18,000 was spent by your office to send out a citywide mailing. However, the true cost was over $34,000. Why did you lie to the public?
I appreciate the question. The $18,000 was for the mailing and postage. The balance of it was for the consultant that has been doing all sorts of consulting work with us with communications. As you know, I send out a monthly electronic newsletter to my constituents, and they help with content, with the design, and all that. So I was not lying. The balance of the money that you're talking about is for even a broader range of services that consultant provided.
And Councilmember Moore, if you want to follow up with that, you can.
Sure. The public was asking how much it costs. They didn't ask you to bifurcate the expenses. And now that you've said that you have split it up, you have also potentially violated the procurement code, which says that over $20,000 of expenditures should be done in a different manner. And so you have artificially split up an invoice between two things and only decided to tell the public half of the truth. We need elected officials that'll tell all of the truth. So that's why I am the best candidate for Atlanta City Council President.
Well, now, Councilmember Wan, you may ask Felicia Moore a question.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. So, I mean, since you're talking about this and you've been basing your campaign on ethics, you've been continually lying to the public all through this campaign. You claim you never voted to increase property taxes. That's not true. You claim you published all of your transactions online. That's not true. You promised to publish your poll transcript. You still have not done that. And let's talk about that mailing. You went on TV and said that you would never use your district tax money to send mailings out to anyone outside your district. That is false. I know of at least 3 folks. There's a resident on Garden Lane. I have a photo of the newsletter you sent to him. How can you reconcile lying to the public to get elected with any sort of personal code of ethics, accountability, and transparency?
Well, Mr. Wan, everything you said is not true. And I did send out a city, not a mailer that was citywide. That's what you spent $34,000 on. What I do is I send out district newsletters to my district. There is one neighborhood that is outside my district that has consistently received my information for over 6 years, well before I announced that I was running for president and council. And that's only because their mailing addresses come up in the list, and it is impossible sometimes to take time to pull them out. And so that is all that I have done, and I'm not a liar. I did not misrepresent, as you did, to the public that it cost $18,000 when in fact you mailed it citywide as a district person, $34,000.
Councilmember Wan, you want to follow up?
Well, there's more than one neighborhood. I can name 3 streets that are in multiple neighborhoods. So you went on TV even to claim that you would not send it outside your district when that is patently false.
You may respond.
I went on television and I said that I have never mailed a citywide mailing. So if a few people outside of my district received it, I'm glad that they got some information, but I never purposely sent an email, I mean not an email, a mailer citywide after I announced I was running for council president when I am a district council member.
Well, that concludes round 2. For those just joining us, this is the Atlanta Press Club runoff debate between the candidates for Atlanta City Council President. We'll now go to our third and final round. And in this round, the panelists will ask questions to the candidate of his or her choice until we simply just run out of time. We will determine when a rebuttal is appropriate. Dan Clapeau, you get the first question in this round, and your question goes to the candidate of your choice.
Thank you. For Mr. Wan. Mr. Wan, you've led the Council's Finance Committee for a long time, and you know the procurement process as well as anyone. I'm wondering, what role does the Council President have or should have in terms of vetting contracts that come for passage before the Council? And should the Council President have any role in terms of reforming the city's procurement process?
So I don't believe that City Council or any elected official should be involved in the procurement selection process. I think that is a very bright line that should not be crossed, and it's one that I have respected very much as a council member. What I do think a council president can step in is working with the council, mobilizing and creating these forums and these conversations and these task force to work with the administration to find ways that we can improve our procurement process. I mentioned in my comments earlier, there are certain portions of it that we can daylight. Formulation of the RFP, so a scope of work can't be written to favor one contractor or another. Limiting our ability to add additional dollars to a contract so that we're effectively awarding a larger contract without competition, or even limiting the opportunities of an RFP to be thrown out or canceled simply because our favored contractor doesn't get in. So I do think that there are multiple ways that council could get involved in reforming contracting without actually being in the selection process.
And Stephanie Stokes, it's now your turn. You may ask a question to a candidate of your choice.
Councilmember Moore, City Council presidents haven't had much success running for mayor of Atlanta. We now have the examples of former City Council Presidents Cesar Mitchell, Kathy Woolard, and Lisa Borders. Do you have aspirations for higher office, and if so, is this a good move for you?
I have aspirations to be council president. When I started serving in 1997, one of the things I admired was then Council President Marvin Arrington and how he operated, as well as some of the others that have come before them. And I said that when my service was done to for the residents of District 9, that I wanted to be able to expand my service citywide. And so I am a council president candidate who wants to be council president. I'm not running to have an higher office, and this is where I'm going to put my service. If in fact in the future that is an opportunity that I'd like to seek, I will always leave that open. But right now my focus is on being the best council president that the city of Atlanta has had.
Tom Baxter, you may now ask a question to a candidate of your choice.
Councilmember Moore, in your view, what is the role of Invest Atlanta, and do you propose any changes in that program with regard to how taxpayer dollars are spent?
The role of Invest Atlanta is an authority, and it is the economic development arm of the city. And it should be the arm that gets things done, that tasks those economic development projects. What I've seen, unfortunately, over time is that it's become the brain and all the body of economic development in the city. What I would like to see is that our planning commissioner be empowered to be a planning commissioner again, as we've had in the past, where they can help direct how we move forward with economic development, and that the council be more involved in the policy set and giving direction to our economic development arm through our intergovernmental agreements on how we want them to operate. I believe that it has been heavily moved to a direction where things go outside of the council so that they can be moved forward by Invest Atlanta, which limits sometimes public input into the process. So I want it to be the arm, not the brain. I want the council to be the policymakers of this city.
All right, and Dan Capel, you can ask another question to a candidate.
Mr. Wan, one of the more important roles of the council president is to appoint council members to the various committees and appoint someone to lead those committees. That's important, as you know, because those committees really get into the weeds on policy issues and ask tough questions of the administration. What criteria will you use when thinking about which council members should go on which committees?
So during this campaign season, I've taken the time to go and meet all the different candidates that were running for the open seats, because I wanted to get a feel. You want to build that relationship early and hear as they're on the campaign trail what their priorities are. I've learned that to be an effective committee chair, you really have to have a passion for that subject matter and have ideas of what you'd like to see move forward in terms of initiatives and policies. So it's that knowledge, that conversation, and then aligning it and matching it up with where I'd like to see council go. That's the decision factor for me, and how I will map out council members to both committees and committee chairs.
Stephanie Stokes, you may now ask another question.
Councilmember Wan, so a lot of people have complained that the city council, this current city council, has just been a rubber stamp on the mayor's agenda. Under your watch, do you think the city council would earn a different reputation?
Absolutely. I think I've established myself as a very principled and reasoned and independent thinker on this council. I've had run-ins with the mayor himself on issues, and very public ones, and then I voted no on several of the major real estate transactions that he was supporting. That's the spirit I want to instill in the 7 new council members that will be joining council next year, and building the team so that we have this independent, deliberative approach to policy, to legislation, that we're doing it well in advance so we're making informed decisions, so that a strong mayor who would want to take advantage of an unorganized council would not be able to do it.
Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for questions. Now, each candidate will now have 60 seconds for a closing statement. And Alex Wan, you can go first.
Thank you, Rose. So on December 5th, voters in Atlanta will have an opportunity to chart the next steps of the city and really change the tenor of how we move the city forward. I'm running for city council president because I know I have the education, experience, and more importantly, the collaborative spirit to bring the new council members together with the returning ones to move things forward. I am honored to have the endorsement of my colleague, Councilmember C.T. Martin. I can think of no clearer proof of the principles I've been running on, the ability to bring people from different geographic and potentially ideological parts of the city together to get results and get things done. I'm an Atlantan. I grew up in Stone Mountain. I went to Georgia Tech. I love the city. I really love the things that we have accomplished together, but I also know that we have even greater things to accomplish together. I thank the voters who have shared their thoughts, their passions, their fears, their concerns with me on doorsteps. I will take that with me to become the best city council president that I can be. I humbly ask for your vote on December 5th. I leave you with the hashtag that has crystallized our campaign, Wan for all for Wan. I hope I've earned your vote. Thank you.
And Felicia Moore, you may now give your closing statement.
To the citizens of Atlanta, you have an opportunity to elect the best choice for Atlanta City Council President. I have had a long and demonstrated track record and consistent track record of transparency, accountability, and ethics. I have not only just talked the talk, I have walked the walk. I have put in and passed authored legislation that has helped us in our area of public safety, establishing Maddie's Call, which have helped us find lost seniors. I am going to be working diligently on the issues that concern you, like infrastructure, transit, and affordable housing. But most importantly, I've been a fiscal watchdog for all of those years, serving on the Finance Committee, where I have passed the legislation that everyone touts about the reserves that we have saved. That was legislation that I authored, as well as my pivotal role in pension reform. Elect someone who has a demonstrated track record, someone you can trust. Please join the team. Vote FeliciaMoore.com. Vote for me as your next Atlanta City Council President.
Thank you, candidates. That concludes our debate. We'd like to remind voters the runoff election will be Tuesday, December 5th. Our thanks to the candidates and to our panel of journalists. We'd also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club for making today's debate happen, and also Public Broadcasting Atlanta for hosting us. I'm Rose Scott. Thanks for joining us. The Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk-Young Debate Series.